Welcome to It's Nolan's Playbook. Today's hot topic for you guys, I have the quarterback injuries for this week. The first quarterback injury that I'm mostly concerned about is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is going to be out 3 months with the turf toe injury after he had to have surgery. I'm really concerned about the Cincinnati Bengals because we know for the past 5 years they always get out to a slow start. In September, they always get out to all these slow starts for whatever reason that might be. This year is different. They played preseason. They played preseason last year, but they got out to a slow start. Joe Burrow, them, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, the guys, the starters, they played this preseason also. They were able to get off to a 2-0 start this year. So the thing that sucks about this is it felt different this year with them getting off to a fast start, with them being 2-0, and now you suffer a setback with Joe Burrow's toe, um, turf toe injury. I just really feel bad because Joe Burrow, we know how good Joe Burrow is when he is on the football field. It's just he has to be able to stay on the football field, and we all know what they say: the best ability is availability. So with that being said, the offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals, they have not helped Joe Burrow out through his career. And management has not helped Joe Burrow out through his career either, because they have never given him a good enough offensive line. And that's a lot of the reason why Joe Burrow has had all these injuries in his career, because he hasn't had an offensive line to protect him. Now, granted, you could have an offensive line that protects you 24/7, and you could still get hurt as a quarterback. Injuries are just naturally a part of the game anyway, but it makes it worse when you have an offensive line like Caleb Williams had last year and you running for your life. Same thing with Joe Burrow. He doesn't have an offensive line and he has to try to run for his life. And that's what causes his injuries. Do you know that Joe Burrow in his career, he's been sacked 201 times in his career, including 5 sacks this year through 2 games for Joe Burrow. That's only second most to Russell Wilson. I think it was in 2022, he got sacked 70 times in 2022. That's the year that they went to the Super Bowl in 2022, and he managed to get sacked 70 times in 2022, and they still were able to go to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is going to end up being like Andrew Luck. He's going to retire early in his career because he has all these injuries, because he's always taking all these hits. Joe Burrow has only been in the league 5 years. His first year, 2020, he tore his ACL, his PCL, his MCL, and he tore his meniscus all in his left knee on one play, taking a sack. In 2021, Joe Burrow dislocated his pinky finger in his right hand. 2022, he had a sprained MCL in his left knee in the Super Bowl that they lost, unfortunately. 2023, Joe Burrow had a calf strain during training camp, and it took him a while to get back. He also had a ruptured ligament in his right wrist that was season-ending wrist surgery in 2023 for Joe Burrow. He missed the rest of that year. Jake Browning is going to be the backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't believe in Jake Browning. I really don't. But the Cincinnati Bengals, they're used to playing without Joe Burrow, and it's not like Jake Browning is new to this situation. He's had to step in plenty of times before. He led them to a game-winning drive on Sunday, but as far as Joe Burrow being out for 3 months and Jake Browning happened to try to play for 3 months and sustain a level of success and try to live up to what Joe Burrow does, that's not going. I don't see that happening. I think the Cincinnati Bengals need to go out and get somebody like Kirk Cousins or get somebody like Jameis Winston, because I don't see Jake Browning being able to carry this team. I will tell you guys, the last 3 games of the Cincinnati Bengals season, they played the Miami Dolphins, who are currently struggling right now. They're 0-2. They play the Arizona Cardinals. They're 2-0. The Cardinals have had an easy schedule. That's the only reason why the Cardinals are 2-0. And in the last game of the season, the Cincinnati Bengals played the Cleveland Browns. I tell you guys those 3 games because those are games that's probably going to have to be won. All 3 of those games, depending on how this thing plays out with Jake McCarthy starting, and we don't know if Joe Burrow is going to be able to come back. Those last 3 games of the Cincinnati Bengals regular season, those are going to be 3 important games that they need to go 3-0 in, because it might be for their playoff chances, and it might be for a chance that if they win those 3 games to get into the playoffs, Joe Burrow can possibly come back. So those are 3 huge games. But I mean, we're going to see what Jake Browning gives us. He's either going to be hit or miss. But if he can keep them afloat while Burrow is hurt, that's all they asking for. They ain't asking him to be Joe Burrow because they know he can't. It's hard to be Joe Burrow because he's a hell of a player. Let's transition. Justin Fields, quarterback for the New York Jets. He's out with a concussion this week. Tyrod Taylor will be starting against the Buccaneers. Even if Justin Fields played against the Buccaneers, I always have the Buccaneers winning this game because the Buccaneers are off to a hot start. They're 2-0. Justin Fields and the New York Jets offense did not look great last week when they played the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills came in to MetLife Stadium and just took the life out of the crowd and took the life out of the Jets, and it was just a lifeless performance for the Jets as a whole. So maybe Tyrod Taylor starting might do the Jets some good, but Justin Fields is going to be out with a concussion. Get well soon, Justin Fields. On that note, J.J. McCarthy for the Minnesota Vikings, he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Carson Wentz will be starting in his place. And to that I say, oh Lord, here we go. Carson Wentz is starting in J.J. McCarthy's place. The first 2 weeks of the season, J.J. McCarthy has not looked good. He didn't look good against the Falcons. The Falcons defense was all over him and sacked him 6 times. And then the first 3 quarters of that Chicago Bears game, J.J. McCarthy, he looked horrible until the 4th quarter. He put together that 4th quarter. That's the only quarter he's looked good in through 2 games. And now he's out 2 to 4 weeks. And Carson Wentz is your starting quarterback for the time being. Let me give you the Minnesota Vikings schedule. This week, ironically, they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's going to be Carson Wentz against Jake Browning. The next week, on the 28th, the following week, they play the Pittsburgh Steelers overseas. The next week after that will be the 5th. The Minnesota Vikings are playing the Cleveland Browns. Now, the 2 games that they got coming up after they play the Cincinnati Bengals are overseas. So, on the 28th, they play the Steelers. That's overseas. On the 5th, they play the Browns. That's overseas. So, they have back-to-back games in London. J.J. McCarthy's out 2 to 4 weeks. If J.J. McCarthy goes on that overseas trip, that tells you everything you need to know. It's possible that he could play one of those 2 games overseas. If J.J. McCarthy does not go on that overseas trip, after the Minnesota Vikings come back into the U.S. from that overseas trip, they have a bye week. After that bye week, they play the Philadelphia Eagles. So if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, I would keep J.J. McCarthy out, and I would not let him go on a trip overseas for those back-to-back 2 games they have to play. I would play the long game, Let him miss those 2 games. Don't let him travel overseas for those 2 games. You have a bye week after you come back into the U.S., and then you play the Philadelphia Eagles. Play this thing smart. It's no reason to rush this. Play it smart. We know about Carson Wentz. He is not the Carson Wentz of his Philadelphia Eagle days and his MVP days with the Eagles. That's not the same Carson Wentz. They tried to experiment with that when he went to Washington, and he was Washington starting quarterback in 2020. That didn't go well either. He went to Kansas City last year to be Patrick Mahomes' backup. So you might think that with Patrick Mahomes being around Pat and being around Andy Reid and seeing how the Chiefs do things in Kansas City, that might have rubbed off on Carson Wentz, and he might be able to improve some things as he has a couple of starts coming up possibly. We'll see, but Carson Wentz, all we asking you to do is just keep the Minnesota Vikings afloat. Y'all 1-1 right now. Y'all should really be able to beat the Cincinnati Bengals because they don't have Burrow. Same thing with Cincinnati. Y'all should be able to beat Minnesota because they don't have McCarthy. Against the Steelers, that's going to be a hard game for Carson Wentz because we know how good that Steelers defense is, even though through the first 2 games that Steelers defense has not been what we've all expected. Now, that second overseas game against the Browns, Carson Wentz, you should be able to beat the Cleveland Browns. You really should. There's no reason why y'all should not be able to beat the Cleveland Browns. And then you had the bye week. And then you had the Philadelphia Eagles, which hopefully J.J. McCarthy is back by then. But all we asking you to do, Carson Wentz, don't turn the football over, make smart plays, and keep the team afloat. That's all they asking you to do. We not asking you to be MVP Philadelphia Eagles Carson Wentz. We not asking you to do that. Just play it smart. We know Kevin O'Connell knows how to draw up plays. He's going to play this thing smart. But with J.J. McCarthy, play the long game and don't play the short game. He has a high ankle sprain. Let's manage this thing the right way so he can be fully healthy. Let's go to Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, he suffered the knee sprain during that Thursday night primetime game. The MRI came back clean. Dan Quinn did say yesterday they won't know more until Friday based off of if he's going to be able to play or not. If Jaden Daniels is not able to go on Sunday, Marcus Mariota is your starting quarterback. Jaden Daniels' knee sprain is not serious, so it's possible that he can only miss 1 game. I would let him miss this game because you playing the Raiders. You telling me that Marcus Mariota can't get you 1 game and it's against the Raiders? He can get you 1 game. I trust Marcus Mariota for 1 game. The next week, the Washington Commanders, they'll be playing the Falcons. That's when y'all need Jaden Daniels the most. Y'all don't need Jaden Daniels this week against the Raiders. No disrespect to Pete Carroll and the Raiders. But y'all don't need Jaden Daniels this week. Y'all need him against the Falcons. So let Marcus Mariota play this week and let Jaden Daniels have a week off. With that being said, they didn't look good on Thursday Night Football, did Washington. They did not look great. When they played against the Giants, they looked okay. It's the Giants. They beat them as they should have. Thursday Night Football, they just didn't look great. So that's another thing that I would tell you guys. If Jaden Daniels does play, I do understand it because this team needs to go 2-1 and they need to beat the Raiders. They have to beat the Raiders. That's my only concern. Y'all need to beat the Raiders. So if Jaden Daniels does play, I get it. But Marcus Mariota, you should be able to get them 1 game at least. The last one I'm going to give you guys, Brock Purdy, you know he's supposed to be out 2 to 5 weeks with a shoulder injury and a turf toe. The organization and Kyle Shanahan, they were more concerned about the turf toe more than the shoulder injury. You see why they were more concerned about the turf toe. You see what Joe Burrow is dealing with the surgery and being out 3 months. But they did go on to say that this is not anything compared to Joe Burrow. Brock Purdy's turf toe is not that serious, is not really serious like Joe Burrow's is. So that's good news. He's week to week. He's supposed to be 2 to 5 weeks, but the 49ers taking this thing week to week. They did play Mac Jones last week when they played the Saints. And Mac Jones had a great game. Mac Jones was 26 out of 39 for 279 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 6 carries for 6 yards. He was sacked 3 times. They did win the game against the Saints 26 to 21. So Mac Jones did have a good game. So if Brock Purdy has to miss another week, you got Mac Jones in. And this week they're playing the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are 2-0, as I mentioned earlier. They had an easy schedule. They played the Saints and they played the Panthers. That's easy. Of course, Arizona was going to beat those two teams. We know they're not a good team, actually. They just have an easy schedule. They play the 49ers this week. The 49ers, y'all should be able to handle the Arizona. That's a division game. Y'all should be able to handle them. I would play Mac Jones this week based off of, because he had a good game last week. And Mac Jones did not have a good game last week. I'm trying to rush Brock Purdy back as soon as possible. But I wouldn't rush him back because Mac Jones performed well. And you telling me that Mac Jones can't have another good game against the Arizona Cardinals? Really? Mac Jones. Play Mac Jones this week. And then the following week, next week, the 49ers are playing the Jaguars. That's another game that the 49ers should win. Hopefully, by next week, Brock Purdy will be back by then. But if not, hey, we riding Mac Jones till the wheels fall off. So, with these quarterback injuries, I'm most concerned about Joe Burrow. I'm most concerned about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Just based off of what I was telling y'all, the fast start, and then you have the setbacks. Joe Burrow is a heck of a quarterback, but the organization has to stop being cheap and give this dude the pieces that he needs. Give this guy an offensive line. Give this guy a defense. Do those two things, and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to compete. With that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Come back next week for more of Nolan's Playbook. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about these quarterback injuries and whose quarterback are you more concerned about with the injury. And we're out of here.